The sun was a white-hot coin nailed to the sky. The dry wind swept across the Etosha grasslands, kicking up dust that clung to Ao's skin like a second layer. Sweat had long stopped dripping. His body was running on fumes. But he kept walking. Somewhere out here, a snare was waiting, a crude loop of wire that could end a lion's life in seconds. He had to find it. Ao was one of the youngest rangers in the Etosha Reserve. Just 23, barely 2 years into the job. He joined full of fire, fueled by the belief that protecting wildlife was noble, necessary. But belief didn't stop the heat. It didn't soften the sun. His radio crackled with static. He'd been trying to reach base for the last hour. Nothing. Dead zone. His water bottle was empty, rattling with nothing but a memory. He hadn't expected this patrol to stretch into midday. But a trail of footprints had lured him deeper than planned. Poachers moved fast, and they knew the land. Ao had to move faster. Each step now felt like a negotiation with gravity. His boots were heavy, his tongue, dry sand. He scanned the ground automatically, eyes trained for the glint of wire or the strange stillness of injured prey. But his vision was starting to blur. He stumbled once, got up, kept moving. Then, with no ceremony, his legs folded. He hit the ground hard, the dry grass cushioning nothing. He lay there, chest rising and falling like a trapped bird's. His head throbbed. His lips cracked. The horizon wavered in waves of heat. He thought of the oryx he'd seen that morning, proud, alert, always ready to run. He thought of his mother warning him before he took the job. This land eats people too. Ao. He hadn't listened. Lying there, he started to understand. But even now, he didn't regret it. Somewhere nearby, maybe just out of sight, a steel trap waited. Maybe it would catch a springbok. Maybe a leopard. Maybe nothing. But maybe, if he didn't get up, it would go undiscovered. He rolled to his side. His vision pulsed black and white. But he managed to get one knee under him. Then the other. He rose, shaking, slow, unsteady, but upright. He saw it 10 steps later, a snare hidden in the brush. Nearly invisible, someone had set it fresh. He marked the location, took a photo, and cut it loose with his knife. Then he dropped again, this time gently, not collapse, just rest. His radio finally crackled again. A voice, faint but clear. Ao. Come in. He pressed the button with dry fingers. Found one. Need evac. Dehydration. On our way. He lay back and closed his eyes. The sky above burned, but inside him was something steady, duty. And that, even here, was stronger than the sun. Ao woke to silence, not the absence of sound, but a silence that felt thick, alert, alive. He blinked against the bright sky. His head was pounding. The last thing he remembered was calling for help. Then everything going soft around the edges. Now the sun had shifted. Time had passed. He sat up slowly, and froze. They were all around him. Lions. A pride, at least 7 of them. Lying in a loose circle. Their golden bodies blended into the dry grass, like spirits pulled from the land itself. Closest to him stood a lion unlike any he'd seen before, a massive male. With a thick mane tinged not golden, but a deep brown-gray, almost smoke-colored. His eyes locked with Ao's. Ao didn't move. His breath caught somewhere between his chest and throat. This was how it ended. Maybe, quietly, not to poachers or thirst. but to nature itself, to the very beasts he'd sworn to protect. But the lion didn't charge. None of them did. They just watched him. Their eyes weren't full of hunger. No growls. No tension in their muscles. Just curiosity, and something else. Something calm. Ao's instincts screamed at him to look down. Avoid eye contact. Stay still. But something deeper held him steady. He looked back at the lion. Not defiant. Not afraid. Just present. The lion blinked. A slow, almost lazy movement. Then he turned his head slightly, looking past Ao toward the horizon, and sat down. One by one, the others followed. Cubs nestled against their mothers. Young males lounged in the grass. It felt less like a threat, more like a strange audience. A silent witness. Ao's mind raced. Why weren't they attacking? Had they eaten already? Were they just curious about this weak, sun-stunned human lying in their path? Or maybe, and this thought came unbidden, but stuck, maybe they knew. Maybe they recognized something in him. The way animals sometimes recognize which humans are different. The ones who don't carry guns. The ones who walk the land not to conquer, but to protect. He didn't know how long they stayed like that. Minutes. An hour. The sun dipped a little lower, casting long shadows. Then, as silently as they'd come, they began to leave. The lion with the grey mane was the last to rise. He gave Ao one last look, not threatening, not dismissive, just a quiet acknowledgement, then turned and followed his pride into the bush. Ao sat there, heart pounding slow but steady. The radio on his belt crackled again. Ao, you still there? He lifted it to his lips. Yeah, I'm here. Evac team's 5 minutes out. He looked out across the plain, to where the lions had disappeared. Take your time, he said, and for the first time that day, he smiled. Ao drifted in and out of consciousness, his body still recovering from heat and exhaustion. The world flickered between now and then, between dry grass beneath him and distant memories rising like heat from the earth. A face came to him. Not human, a lion's face. Smaller, younger, eyes wide with panic, a wire tight around its paw, cutting into flesh. The cub had tried to flee, but the snare held firm. It had been years ago, before Ao wore the ranger uniform. Back when he was just a trainee following an older ranger on his first patrol. He remembered how his hands shook when he approached the cub. How it growled, terrified. The mother had been nearby, watching from the tall grass. But not attacking, just waiting, her breath heavy with worry. The older ranger had warned him, be quick, be calm, she's giving us a chance. And Ao had knelt down, using pliers to cut the twisted metal. The cub whimpered, paw bleeding, but free. It had limped back toward its mother, and Ao had watched as she nuzzled her child, then looked back at him, just for a second, before they vanished into the bush. The memory faded. He opened his eyes again. Slowly, the lions were still there, though some had moved farther off. Resting in the shade, the big male with the gray-brown mane stood closer now. His face was older, scarred, but his eyes, Ao's breath caught. Those eyes. He knew them. And the female beside him, leaner, her muzzle flecked with white, she, too, looked familiar, and among the pride, nearly grown now, was a younger lion with a slight limp in his back leg. Ao's mind pieced it together. It wasn't just chance. This was them. The cub he'd freed, the mother who had spared him, The pride he'd helped survive without even knowing what it would mean. They hadn't forgotten. They had found him now. Years later, collapsed and vulnerable, and instead of walking away, they had stayed, watching, guarding, repaying a kindness. He felt something shift in his chest. Not just relief, or awe, but a kind of quiet understanding. This land was brutal. Yes, it tested you. It scarred you. But it also remembered. Out here, every act meant something. The roar of an engine broke the stillness. A vehicle appeared on the ridge, the rescue team. The lions turned their heads. Alert but not alarmed, they began to move, slipping back into the grass. One by one. Before disappearing, the male looked back at Ao a final time. Thank you. That's what it felt like. Ao sat up as the truck approached. A medic rushing toward him. You all right? The man asked. Ao nodded slowly. Yeah, just saw some old friends. The calm didn't last. Ao was still on the ground, trying to sip the last drops from his canteen when a strange sound cut through the quiet, high-pitched, broken laughter, sharp as snapping twigs. Hyenas. He turned his head and saw them, a pack of 8. Maybe more, moving in from the west. Their bodies were low, twitchy, muscles bunched under spotted fur. Yellow eyes gleamed with hunger and calculation. They had smelled weakness. Ao tensed. He had no strength left to run. No weapon that would matter if they rushed him. The lions lifted their heads in unison. The big male stood first. The hyenas didn't back off. They were bold, desperate. Maybe they'd faced lions before. Sometimes they won, especially when numbers tilted their way. The hyena at the front let out a series of sharp barks and took a step closer. Others fanned out, trying to flank. Ao's breath came shallow. He didn't dare move. He was nothing more than a bundle of bones and blood to them now. Easy prey. But the lion didn't flinch. He stepped forward, placing himself between Ao and the pack. His body was massive, his presence a wall. The wind caught his gray-streaked mane as he let out a low, rumbling growl, a sound that made the earth seem to hold its breath. Then he roared. The sound tore across the plains. Deep and furious, Ao felt it in his chest. In the ground beneath him. In the air itself. The hyenas froze. One backed off. Another growled in return, half-heartedly. The lion took a single, deliberate step forward. That was enough. The lead hyena snarled. But it was bluff now. They turned, slinking backward, one by one, then breaking into a retreat. Within moments, they were gone, just flickers in the grass. Swallowed by distance. The lion watched until the last one disappeared. Only then did he turn back to Ao. No roar now, just a slow, quiet breath through his nose. A look passed between them. Not yet, the lion seemed to say. You're not done. Moments later, dust rose on the horizon, the ranger vehicle. This time Ao saw it clearly. A beige truck with the reserve's logo. The engine hummed as it skidded to a stop. The door flew open. Ao. It was Kwame, his longtime friend and fellow ranger. Sprinting toward him with a canteen in one hand and a radio in the other. I'm okay, Ao said hoarsely. Kwame knelt beside him. We lost your signal. Thought we were too late. Ao nodded past him. You weren't, he said. They bought me time. Kwame turned, just in time to see the lion cresting a hill, then disappearing beyond it with the rest of the pride. Ao leaned back as Kwame handed him water. You won't believe what just happened. Kwame grinned. Try me. And Ao, surrounded by friends both wild and human, finally let himself breathe. Weeks passed. The heat, the thirst, the near-death moment, they became part of Ao's memory. Etched deep but no longer raw. His body recovered slowly, the dizziness faded. The weight returned to his steps. But something inside him had changed. Back on patrol, he moved differently now, more aware, more quiet. He didn't just walk through the land, he listened to it. The silence between rustling grass. The warning cry of a bird. The tracks half buried in dust. He had always respected the wild. Now, he felt part of it. It was late afternoon when he took the long route near the western boundary. The sky was heavy with gold. The kind of light that turned the bush into fire. He climbed a narrow path up a rocky ridge, a spot he used to visit during training. Years ago, it gave him a wide view of the plains below. At the top, he paused to catch his breath. And then he saw him. The lion, standing alone on a nearby hilltop, backlit by the setting sun. His gray-streaked mane moved gently in the breeze. He was older now, maybe slower, but no less commanding. Ao didn't move. He barely breathed. They stared at each other across the distance, two figures framed by orange light and shadow. The air between them hummed with silence. No roar, no gesture, just a stillness that said more than words ever could. Ao felt something rise in his chest, not fear, not awe, but recognition. This wasn't just a wild animal. This was the creature that had stood between him and death. The one he'd once freed from a snare, when it was too young to fight back. The one who had returned, fully grown, to return the favor. Their stories had crossed twice now, in moments where life and death were decided by inches. And somehow, they both knew it. In the lion's eyes, Ao saw no threat, no challenge, just that same deep look he'd seen once before, the day the cub limped back to its mother. And the mother turned her head for one last look. Ao nodded, almost without realizing it. Thank you. The lion blinked slowly, then turned, walking back into the long grass, vanishing with the same quiet grace he had shown years before. Ao stood alone again, the wind brushing his face. Some connections had no name, no explanation, just the feeling that, for a moment, two beings had truly seen each other, not as predator and protector, not as man and beast, but as part of the same wild world. As dusk settled and the stars began to appear, Ao started back down the hill. He didn't look back. He didn't need to.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.